he always thought that a business is like a human body, where if you know kind of what plays the role of liver, what plays the role of heart, what plays the role of the brain, you can figure out and kind of streamline the processes and build a strong business because you know exactly what's happening and what's the flow of everything.
Let's dive right into the topic at hand, which is building businesses using psychology. So what would you say is the number one secret to doing just that? And talk a little bit about your background and your training, which would, I think, is really interesting here, and a little bit of a different take on what a lot of our podcast guests are coming on talking about.
So it's not just one secret, but the reality is that, and this is something I found over the last 20 years of helping businesses grow, because initially it was just the bookkeeping and accounting and then tax and everything else. And I've watched businesses grow, shut down, or make it, like really make it big over all of these years. And I started noticing patterns, and I started noticing attitudes, and I started noticing mindsets, and started paying attention to that. So a couple of years ago, I went and started to get my training with Gestalt psychology. Gestalt psychology is really focused around emotions and emotional response, because there is, I don't know if you know this, but there is, our emotions are in the most oldest part of our brain that developed initially, right? But our speech is actually in the prefrontal cortex. And so there's often a problem with connecting how we feel to actually putting that in words and saying, I feel this or this or this or that. And unfortunately, or fortunately, an emotional response, emotional reaction, emotional state influences every day our business decisions, our behavior in business, our behavior in our families, and things like that. My dad built a business. He was a doctor by education many, many years ago. And he was a doctor by education, never worked as a doctor much. He worked in a lab for a few years, but he always thought that a business is like a human body, where if you know kind of what plays the role of liver, what plays the role of heart, what plays the role of the brain, you can figure out and kind of streamline the processes and build a strong business because you know exactly what's happening and what's the flow of everything. And so when he was building a business, and he didn't really, he brought his business home, meaning his stress in the 90s, building a business in the Soviet Union was very interesting, let's put it this way. And so he brought the business home, and it affected everything. It affected me, it affected my sister, it affected our family. And I noticed at some point, probably 10, 12 years ago, that when I was stressing out about money and clients and all of this, I would also bring that home. I would notice how I would lose it quicker with kids. And, the kids were tiny at that point. So they really had no brain power to create a master plan to piss me off. But really, all of those insights really supported my interest in how psychology affects us, how our psyche affects us, how our trauma affects us, our childhood trauma, our upbringing, our patterns, how they affect what we do in business. And the statistic is real. 50% of businesses fail within 5 years. 20% fail in year one. And so I started noticing how my clients would also bring different things home, how they would make decisions by being stressed out, and how those decisions would ultimately backfire sometimes, and sometimes would actually result in something very cool.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. So it sounds like it just recognizing how powerful psychology and mindset has to do with the success of businesses and or the failure. If 50% of businesses are failing in the first 5 years and 20% in the first year, and also connecting how that is the work-life balance and bringing those stresses home. And you have that background with your father. That's intense. You had to have to try to start a business in the Soviet Union. I couldn't imagine. And no, I don't think anyone really in America could, right? Compared to what it could be over there.